All right, good evening, everybody. Um, just want to do some few quick announcements before I let Glenn start our resume workshop here. After the meeting this evening, we'll be doing VITA, and we're almost done with our VITA volunteering. We've got this VITA that we're doing, and we're going to have one more next week before the tax day. I mean, I know it's been extended, but for us, that's going to be our tax day. Because of finals and dead week. So we have a couple more VITAs left. I wanted to say thank you to all the ones who have volunteered. It's been an extreme help, and the United Way really appreciates our extra efforts, even though we're not a technical site this year. So thank you all for that. Be looking at your email because Kat sent out an email with some forms, and those forms will get you some goodies. So if you're a graduating senior, there's a form for you to fill out of how you want to receive your graduation stoles. So you want your graduation stole, make sure to fill out that form so that we'll know how we need to get it to you. Also, there are 2 different colors this year, so make sure that you look at the picture on that form and you tell us which color that you would prefer. We also have VITA t-shirts this year. So for those of you participating in VITA, please fill out that form and we will get you your t-shirt as well. So kind of the more fun announcements toward the end of the semester, getting to give out all these goodies. And so we do have several officers that live around the Huntington area. That's going to be one of our forms of delivery. We're also going to be doing things by mail. So if you select the mail option, be looking out for an email from me confirming your address or asking for your address if I don't already have it. That way we can get all of those things to you guys. And that's all the announcements that I have. So Glenn, you can take it away.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Ashlee, for inviting me, and Amanda for reminding me as well. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Glen Midkiff. I'm the director for the Center for Stakeholder Engagement at the Lewis College of Business. And my job is to reach out to our stakeholders through various means. And we do a speaker series called the Cohen speaker series, and we also do a lot of marketing, and we do employer outreach with businesses and with accounting firms. So we do a lot of engagement, a lot of interaction with lots of different people, and trying to keep them informed of what we're doing in the Lewis College of Business. I have a background in career development. I worked in career services, now career education, for about 4 years, and I was a director of career services at a community college. And so I have a little bit of background, and I've talked to employers and kind of know what they are expecting, and also have a background in human resource management as well. So look, that's enough about me, and I want to share a screen with you right now. Let's see here. Can you enable me to share a screen?
Yeah, I just clicked the button.
Okay, awesome.
I always forget about that part.
Okay, let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. Fantastic. Can you see it?
Yes.
Awesome. Very cool. So I'm gonna, your resume is your first interaction with an employer once you apply for a job. And so my first question there was, will your resume pass the 30-second test? So an employer will often look at your resume and give you about 30 seconds, and they make a quick decision if you are qualified or if you're not. And if you're not, you go into the do not hire pile usually. And then another aspect of the resume that's important to acknowledge is that as you're doing your resume, there are employee tracking systems, and so, or applicant tracking systems, an ATS, and so they look for keywords. I'm guessing all of you are accounting or finance or MIS majors, and so they're looking for all those keywords, and so it's important to have lots of different keywords in your resume. So, and the correct education, the correct degree, that matches the job description. So your resume should be, um, very targeted. It should be an overview of your work, your experience, your job skills, your education, and the purpose of the resume is to get you the interview. And so that's the main purpose of that resume. It won't get you the job, but it will definitely lead to an interview. And sometimes that interview can be virtual, or it can be in person, and sometimes it can be over the phone. So, but you want to make your resume stand out. You want to stand out from the crowd. Your resume is going to be one of many. And so if you use a Microsoft Office template, or a template that is used quite frequently, I know Career Services has a template, but if you use that same template, you're going to, you're not going to be unique. And so you want to make sure that you use a different template and your resume looks a little bit different than everyone else's. And so my quote is, a resume is just like life. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And so that first impression is critical when you're applying for the job, because they're going to check for lots of different things. And we'll get into this. They're going to check for grammatical and spelling errors. And so they're going to look at all these different things, especially in your cover letter as well. And so that's an important piece of the application process. So as you begin developing your resume, you want to make sure that you maintain your focus. I know many of you have had different part-time jobs or different positions, but you want to maintain your focus. For example, some of you may have worked at Wendy's. One of my first jobs, I worked at Wendy's. And so, but as I grew in the profession, I got an internship, or I volunteered or interned, and it was career related. That became less of a focus for me. It was definitely, I wanted to show work history. It was in my work history, but it wasn't something I really focused on and had job duties for. I want to make sure that you're accurate. Make sure make sure your resume has the correct, I shouldn't have to say this, make sure it has the correct resume address on it. It has the correct phone number, email, because that's critical as you're applying, and because they will call you, they will email you. And so it would be awful for them not to be able to get a hold of you. Target your resume to the position. Again, look at the job description. Look at the job duties and see exactly what they're asking for, and target your resume towards that. Highlight your accomplishments. For example, underneath your education, if you've had a 4.0, list your GPA. And you can list your GPA up to, especially for undergrad students, up to a 3.5. If you have under a 3.5, I wouldn't list it, but you want to definitely highlight your accomplishments. And part of your accomplishments can be, if you got an award, you volunteered in Beta, and we can get into that a little bit later. But some of those accomplishments are important to put on your resume. Choose your words carefully. Again, I said that they're going to be looking for keywords. Be professional when you're writing your resume. Don't spam employers. Don't just send employers your resume without there being some letter of intent or letter of a cover letter of inquiry, and just making sure that that you're being professional. So through the process. and then avoid resume don'ts. And I have a list of those. Items of controversy. So what are some items of controversy? Anybody have any idea? I don't know if I can see it in the chat, but anybody have an idea of items of controversy? Well, I can't, if you're putting it in the chat, I don't think I can see it, but I will say that items of controversy are usually political affiliations or religious affiliations, things like that. And so you don't want to definitely put anything politically or, or about your religion. You want for the Republican Party, that's fine to list. Uh-oh, it says my internet connection is unstable. I don't know what that means, but can everyone still hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Okay, great. My phone, I'm at Marshall right now. My phone just went out and it's uploading files. So if I lose connection, that's the reason. Personal information, they don't need to know your marital information. They don't need to know any personal information. People used to list hobbies on the resumes. Unless your hobbies are related to your career in some format, you can leave those off. A lot of times they'll ask you what your personal interests are or your hobbies are in the actual interview. Personal references, as your references should be on a separate sheet, not on your resume, and your references should be professional. And so you should get a professor, instructor, an employer, an advisor, someone like that to be a reference for you. Salary requirements, you definitely don't want to list that. The salary requirements will come after you get and it can come up in the interview, but you want to make sure that the employer brings up the discussion. You don't want to bring that discussion up until they ask. They may ask you, what are you looking to make? What's a good starting salary? And if they do ask that, you can then answer the question, but you don't want to discuss it before they get into it. It's sort of like, you don't want to ask someone to marry you on the first date. You want to give it some time, right? And so give it some time and don't jump the gun and start talking about salary. Errors. So make sure you check and double check your resume for errors, spelling, grammatical, indentation errors, whatever that might be. Have everyone look at it. Have your professors look at it. You can drop it off with me. I can take a look at it. But your family, your friends, or even employers that that you have a relationship with. So definitely check for errors and look over them several times. There was an example one time. There's an employer telling me that he had two candidates for a position. And it was a major company, and how he decided was he looked at the resumes and noticed one of them had an error on the resume, and that cost her the position. So watch for errors. Excuse me. There are really four types of resumes. Chronological, that is really, it should be reverse chronological. You want to start with your most recent job and work your way backwards. And so you definitely want to. Chronological is a good format. Functional is basically by expertise. So leadership, it could be a certain type of accounting, or your skills, and you list your skills out and give that experience. A combination resume is using both of those types of resumes. That's the resume I like most, and I'll show you an example later. And a CV is more so for academics, professors, researchers. Excuse me. Many advantages. Many employers and recruiters expect and prefer the chronological format, and so they're going to look at that first. And because most of the time, if it's not chronological or reverse chronological order, it can demonstrate a lack of work experience. And so they're thinking that you're not being straightforward with your resume. You're trying to hide something that that you're they don't see a lot of work experience on there. And then it's easy to scan chronological resumes, and they can look by year and see exactly where you were and what you were doing, or even your education. And the disadvantages of a chronological resume, it will show gaps of employment history. And so one of the ways that you can handle that, I know many of you may have summer jobs. Instead of putting dates on there from May until August or whatever that may be, you may just put summer of 2020, or because they know a lot of you're a college student, and they know many of your jobs are seasonal, and they expect to see that, and that's fine. And they're not going to judge you based on because you were at a job for 3 months. They know that it was it was a summer job, or it was a job in the fall, or even the spring. Okay. I'm not getting into functional resumes because I think that I'm not very comfortable with functional resumes because it does seem like you're hiding something, and employers do expect to see a chronological format. I get to this right here, not CV. CVs can be long. Amanda probably is working on her CV. CVs can be long. It includes research, conferences. It includes articles written, professional organizations, and so CVs can be very long. I have a friend that's a professor, and their CV is like 120 pages long. It has all the research that they've ever done in it. So you definitely don't want to go in that direction until later in your career if you want to go into education or you want to go into research. So the design of your resume. So there are basically 4 quadrants of your resume. The first quadrant, the second quadrant, and third quadrant, and fourth, right? And so the first one, the first part of your resume is your really good real estate. Okay, this is the first. They're going to look at your resume when they're looking at it in 30 seconds. This is what they're going to be looking at. They're going to look at that first area and be like, okay, what do I see? And so you want to make sure your name is up in that area, your skills, that are related to the job description, your education, qualifications, and so all of the number 1 and number 2. That's the reason I like listing where the employment was in quadrants 1 and 2, and it's because they can see it very easily, and we read from left to right. Okay, and so when they're scanning in that direction. So keep it professional, please the reader's eye. Short narratives work well in summary statements, and so I have several examples of those. Use bullets, keyword phrases to highlight and market your skills. Complete sentences are not necessary, so you want to avoid using personal pronouns like I, we, he, she. This is a business document, and so you don't have to use that. You want to utilize action verbs. Be careful of your use of white space, and so you want to make sure you have a full page. when you hand your resume in. You don't want any gaps. You want it to be filled out. And sometimes that takes some creativity. And work on the emphasis of, you know, indentation and working with that to make sure things are lined up correctly. Make sure you have 1-inch margins to balance your content in the body to make sure your resume is more readable. And then be consistent in all resume design, text, and punctuation decisions. So if you're going to put a period after a statement, make sure you do that, especially when you're using your narrative or your summary statement. If you're going to use a period after at the end, make sure you do it all the way down, that you're consistent with it. Key design points: use a readable font rather than one that is decorative. You don't want to be too creative, right? Times New Roman, Arial, those are great fonts to use. Maintain font sizes between 10 and 14. White is still considered the best choice of paper color, believe it or not. And mainly, we haven't done too many face-to-face interviews, but we will later. And you can I would definitely use resume paper. It's a different type of paper, has a sort of a cotton type feel to it. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's definitely worth it and makes a great impression. Avoid unnecessary graphics and shading. Use laser printing on high quality paper. Make sure the photocopies of your resume are clean and sharp. There's no errors or smudges on there. And believe it or not, I've seen it, and I put it on here because I've seen students do it. Never handwrite anything on your resume. People might forget something and decide to write something in there. Don't do that. Essential features. So the very first piece that you want to have on your resume is your contact information, your career, and then underneath there, your career objective or summary, professional summary, your education, relevant coursework, certifications, your internship, and then also your work experience. Your contact information has two purposes. It tells the employer who you are and how to contact you to set up an interview. It should be at the top of the page, and it should be between 16 and 24 point font. Should be the largest item on the page, and so it should be huge. An objective should be, if you have an objective on your resume, a lot of people leave them off anymore. Sort of old school, be specific. Mention your job. Mention the job you are applying for and where you found out about it. And so here's to obtain the accountant position with McGee and Mann accounting firm as advertised on Marshall University's job board. It's very specific and to the point. What job that you're applying for, where you found out about it, and what company it is. Professional summary, it shows why you're the ideal candidate for the desired job. So, it highlights your past accomplishments. So if they want you to have experience with taxes, you might want to use your Beta experience in your professional summary. Highlight your past accomplishments. Emphasize the professional characteristics that make you stand out. Whether that's teamwork or customer service. And I can get into some of those once we look at a resume example. Education, list your educational levels attained, starting with your most recent. List any classes pertinent to the position you're seeking. You can list those out. Include your high school or GED information if applicable. So don't do this and don't include your high school unless they specifically ask for it. Like for a government job, a federal job, they may ask you information about your high school diploma. You may want to include that. But for other jobs for accounting firms, you don't need to put your high school information on your resume. Certificates and licensure. One day you'll have your CPA license, and that'll definitely be there. it's geared towards specific occupations. Many are dealing with public health and safety. Certifications available in many fields of work. So, there are various certifications. So if you have some of the certifications, whether it could be on leadership, we used to have a BB&T leadership certification that we had here in the Lewis College of Business. I think that still went on this year. Or you're in the Cohen Professionalism Speaker Series, or you get certificates or licenses for anything, you can include that in that area. Methods of delivery. So, there's hardly any mail. There's a few out there, but rarely do I ever see any faxing. Most of the time it will be online or email, right? And so if you attach attach your resume to an email, make sure you also give a description, almost put your cover letter in the body of the email, and in the subject line put what job that you're applying for. Online resumes can be stored and searched in online job things. So a lot of people will put their resume on Indeed, and once they do that, employers can search for specific students or potential applicants based upon their skill level. And then scannable resumes are just plain text versions of your regular resume. They used to ask for you to copy your resume and then paste it into their system. I'm not going to get into mailing your resume or faxing. You need to be careful with your resume, because sometimes companies may not have the same, they may not have an updated version of Microsoft Word. So the best idea is to download a PDF. Make your resume a PDF, and then you can upload that to the system, because usually most everybody has a PDF or has Adobe, and they can open that. I'm not going to get into that. The cover letter, make sure you have a heading and greeting. State the date and your name and contact information at the top of the page. Address the letter to a specific name or title whenever possible. If you don't know who you're sending the letter to, you can say, Dear HR Director, or Dear HR Representative, in the title, but at least address it to someone. Don't put to whom it may concern. It's better if you name a specific person, or at least it might be, here at Marshall we do search committees. So, Dear Search Committee, but usually it will go to an HR representative initially, and then they'll disseminate it to the employer. An opening and introduction, explain why you're writing and state your reason for writing. The body should sell yourself. You want to make sure you charm them. Reveal why you're the perfect candidate and the unique match for the position, and explain why you have chosen this employer, what makes you unique. Why have you chosen to apply for this position? What connection do you have with them? So maybe, even in the first part, maybe someone referred you to, maybe someone within that company called you up and said, you really should apply for this position, and they work for that company. You can ask that person if you can name them in the cover letter. And then make sure you have an assertive closing, and, take initiative to further the action and the next point of how you're going to get connected. And so you can put in the assertive closing. You can put your phone number in there, or your email, on how they can contact you if they're interested. And sometimes you can suggest a time or method. I suggest the method, not really the time, and let them know that they can call you if they would want to set up a meeting. Follow up. So one of the things that you do, if you haven't heard anything from them in 2 weeks, you can follow up with them, and you can call them, or you can send them a follow-up email, just to make sure that to see where you are in the process, and to let them know that you're still interested and that you still want that job. After the first follow-up, that's sufficient. You don't need to follow up anymore. If they don't respond to you, it probably means they've moved on with the search, or that position has been eliminated. So go to the next job that you're seeking. Usually, you don't want to continue to email them because it may hurt your chances in the future. Anybody have any questions? Let me. I'm going to get out of this presentation. I'm going to stop this share, and then I'm going to share with you another screen here. I can find it. Okay, here we go. So can everyone see the resume? You can see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So you can see up at the top, it says Marco Marshall. It's the largest item on the page. The name is, and then the address, the phone number. Let me take this part out of here. It's a little correction we got to make. And then the email address. And so that's the first thing that you want on your resume. And then the next piece is a summary. So it says here, full-time accounting student with related work and academic experience seeking an accounting internship. So they state right off why they're sending that resume. And so it explains that they're currently enrolled in the bachelor's degree accounting program, excel academically while working part-time. And it gives other skills that employer might be interested in, that firm might be interested in. And then the next piece is the next section is education. So it lists the Bachelor of Business Administration degree, and the area is accounting, and they expect to graduate, May 17. This time it will be May 22 or May 23. And they're graduating from Marshall University Lewis College Business, which is now the Brad E. Smith Undergraduate School of Business in Huntington, West Virginia, and they have a 3.75 GPA. And they list out some of their coursework because they think, maybe they don't have a lot of related internship or accounting experience on there. So they've listed their coursework. So they listed some of the courses on there. And then they've listed the work experience. So they worked at Marshall, they were a resident assistant, and so they listed out some of their duties. And then they also included they were a treasurer in a group, the Resident Student Association, and they listed out exactly what they did as treasurer for that student group. And then underneath, they included additional work experience. They worked at Target, and then also Marquee Cinemas. And then they were involved with the community and had some affiliation with Beta Alpha Psi. They were an active member, and they were also a volunteer for VITA. And so they explained that. Sometimes you can take this, the VITA piece, and actually put it under the work experience with a description underneath exactly what you do in VITA. And that would also be appropriate. And then they also listed out computer skills because it might have been in the job description, Microsoft Office, and they give some examples of the different, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Publisher, Access, and Outlook, and they have experience with QuickBooks and Oracle. So that is the resume. I can send I can send this to someone. And then if they want to send it out to everyone in the group, that is absolutely fine with me as well. Anybody have any questions? You can put them in the chat box or.
I have one question.
Okay.
You said, I think it was either in the cover letter or part of the actual resume itself, sort of while explaining why you'd be the best for the position, why you should work with that company, or why you chose that company.
Yes.
what are some good ways to say that other than like, you happen to be hiring while I was looking around? I find that's always a struggle for me, is finding a good thing to say there.
Yeah, and sometimes it is difficult. One of the things that you can do, sometimes for example, that's the reason I think it's good early on, whether it's at at Beta Alpha Psi, where you hear a firm speak, or there's a representative speak. You can also insert that in there. Let's say, for example, I'm trying to think of accounting firm off the top of my head. I'll say Midkiff and Midkiff. Midkiff and Midkiff was one of the firms that you had in Beta Alpha Psi, and you listen to them, the representative, and you thought, wow, I think I would like to work there. And then you notice there's an internship posting. And so you go back to that and you describe, well, I was introduced to your company through Beta Alpha Psi, and you relate back to that company. That's where you're going to have to do a little research and go to their company website and see what their culture's like and how you relate. And then also talk about, make that connection, and then also make it a point to talk about some of your accomplishments as well. That comes later on, whether you're in Beta Alpha Psi now, of course, but if you get involved with VITA or you participate in other activities or organizations, include that as well. But those are things that they want to see. But if you can make a connection somehow to that employer, and talk about how you have a relationship built already, it makes a great impression on them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I can put a personal experience to that, because the summer internship I have coming up, I did exactly that, and it worked. So it does work, and it's a very normal thing for the firms around Huntington and Charleston for you to say, I went to a Beta Alpha Psi meeting, I saw you guys, I love the message that you are, saying about your firm. That's a very normal thing for them.
Absolutely. And you want to make that connection. That's the reason it's so great. And I guess that you all have had firms come in virtually, correct? So, to include that on that resume, and they're like, wow, okay, so they've had an interaction with us, they have a connection with us, and you can see, from that firm, what their culture's like, how you can fit in, and you can include that in a resume. Wow, you're really going to make an impact. Any other questions? And I would say with your resume, I have to update my resume. I update my resume all the time. At least take out, a couple times a semester and update your resume, and add things to it, activities that you're involved in, and keep things updated, because you will forget. You go to apply for that job and you're like, oh my goodness, and what have I done? And so do it once or twice a semester, just to kind of keep yourself focused. Any questions? Everybody have a resume? I'd be glad to. I know you're all are off campus right now, but if you, I'd be glad to look at your resumes. Maybe you can send them to Ashlee, or she can send them to me, however you want to do it. I'd be glad to look at them, and get my red pen out and make some suggestions, and then send them back to you if you would like to do that.
Yeah, we could totally do something like that. I know the accounting department is very good about, in certain classes, reviewing resumes and whatnot. So I'll just say that has saved my bacon a few times, because a job opening will come up and I'll need a resume, and it's like, oh, for that class last semester, I had to update my resume. So that is a very forgetful habit I think that all people have, is to forget to update that resume unless you're actively looking for a job.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to update it too. I mean, every accounting firm is different. Every job is going to be different. And so your resume is going to have to be targeted for that specific job. Don't think you're going to have one resume and that's the resume that you're going to have for the rest of your life and you're just going to submit it. So, because employers are going to have different needs. And so you're going to have to look at those needs and how you can fulfill them based upon your qualifications, your education. And so that's, I'm excited that you are here today. Because you can list that you've been involved in Beta Alpha Psi, and that can be an important piece on your resume that they're going to look at, because chances are that employers probably, if they're in accounting, they're going to know what that is, and they probably were involved as well. So that's your connection to them. I mean, I can't tell you the jobs that I've applied for, and it's been because the director of the program or the dean graduated from Marshall, and they said, "Oh, there's Glen Midkiff from Marshall University. Oh, well, I got to definitely interview him. I want to meet him." So, and that's got me an interview before, or certain organization that I've been involved in. So all those things are important on your resume. Make sure you can fill out your one page. Your resume should really be one page. I know people have said, 2 pages, but for you all and accountants, just out of, getting their bachelor's degree out of undergraduate school, 1 page. Now, when you get some experience, you get CPA experience and you have 4 or 5 years under your belt, yes, you can go over that 1 page and have 2 pages. But that 2-page, when you have a 2-page resume, it needs to be a full 2 pages. You don't want any empty areas on those pages. So that's the other piece of it. So 1 page. I know that's it's for some people, for some majors and for some, from some programs and here at Marshall, 2 pages may be okay, but I'm telling you, pretty much every firm that I've talked to says 1 page, and they just want to see 1 page. So just be aware of that. Well, thank you all. If there's no questions, feel free to contact me. My email address is Midkiff, MIDKIFF, 2, at marshall.edu. You can email me. If you want to give your resume to Ashlee, feel free to email it to her, and that way I'm not getting a bunch of emails and can't really track them. But if you want to give your resume to her and then she can forward them to me, I'd be glad to look at them. And, and then what I'll do is send them back to you individually. That way, she doesn't know what your mistakes are. And so, it's taken me a while to get my resume where I want it. My first resume was horrible. It really was. It was really bad. And I didn't know I didn't know what I should know. But the more that you start to work on your resume, and especially now, the better it's going to look once the employer gets it, and they're going to be impressed. Well, thank you all.
Well, thank you.
Before you go, is there any chance you could send out that example resume you showed?
Yes. I'll send it to Ashlee, and then she can send it out to you all. Okay.
Thanks, Glenn.
You're so welcome. I don't know what was going on. It's been a week, I tell you. We have a bunch of Zoom calls. Amanda, are you coming to our teaching and learning conference?
Yeah, I'm actually serving on a panel. So
Oh,
I'll be
awesome.
there.
Yeah.